Welcome back to TALKS ZARA, the podcast where English feels natural, friendly, and useful for real-life conversations.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us again on TALKS ZARA, a place for improving spoken English, building confidence, and sounding more fluent in everyday situations.
Today's episode is all about how to talk about habits in English, and this is such an important topic for daily English conversation practice.
Absolutely, because habits come up all the time, whether you're chatting with friends, attending interviews, making small talk at work, or improving your spoken English skills.
We're going to focus on natural British English expressions, common sentence structures, and vocabulary that native speakers actually use when talking about habits.
And we'll keep everything practical, conversational, and easy to follow, especially for learners searching for English speaking practice, ESL listening practice, and fluency tips.
If you're someone who wants to sound confident when talking about daily routines, lifestyle habits, good habits, bad habits, or personal routines, this episode is for you.
So, grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, and let's get started with how to talk about habits in English the natural way.
Let's begin by understanding what we mean when we say habits in English conversation.
A habit is something you do regularly, often without thinking too much about it, and native speakers talk about habits all the time.
For example, daily habits, morning routines, weekend habits, work habits, study habits, and even unhealthy habits are common conversation topics.
In British English, we often describe habits using the present simple tense because habits are things that happen repeatedly.
You might hear sentences like, I wake up early, I drink tea every morning, or I usually walk to work.
These simple sentences are powerful because they sound natural and confident, which is exactly what English learners aim for.
One of the most common mistakes English learners make is overthinking grammar when talking about habits.
Yes, instead of worrying too much, it's better to focus on clarity, rhythm, and commonly used phrases.
Let's talk about common phrases used to describe habits in English.
Words like usually, often, always, sometimes, rarely, and never are essential when discussing habits.
These are called adverbs of frequency, and they help explain how often something happens.
For example, I usually wake up at 6, or I rarely eat fast food.
In British English conversation, these words often appear before the main verb.
Saying, I always drink coffee in the morning sounds far more natural than placing the adverb incorrectly.
Talking about habits is also a great way to practice small talk in English.
Especially in the UK, people often talk about routines as a way to connect socially.
Someone might ask, what do you usually do on weekends?
Or, do you have any habits that help you relax after work?
These questions are friendly, non-intrusive, and perfect for casual English conversations.
Now let's talk about good habits and bad habits, which are very popular topics in English-speaking practice.
Good habits might include exercising regularly, reading every day, or going to bed early.
Bad habits could be things like staying up too late, eating too much sugar, or procrastinating.
In British English, we often soften the way we talk about bad habits.
For instance, instead of saying, I have a terrible habit, we might say, I'm trying to break a habit.
That sounds more polite, more natural, and very British.
Talking about habits in this way is common in workplace English and professional conversations.
Let's move on to talking about changing habits, which is another useful English conversation topic.
You might say, I'm trying to get into the habit of exercising more.
Or, I'm trying to cut down on coffee.
These phrases are extremely common in everyday British English.
Get into the habit of means you're trying to start a new routine.
And cut down on means you're trying to reduce something, not stop completely.
Another useful phrase is I've fallen out of the habit, which means you stopped doing something regularly.
Native speakers use this phrase often, especially talking about healthy habits or hobbies.
Habits are also closely connected to time expressions in English.
Words like every day, every morning, at the weekend, during the week, and in the evening are very common.
In British English, we usually say at the weekend rather than on the weekend.
That's a great tip for learners who want to sound more British and natural.
Let's talk about habits in the past for a moment.
When we talk about past habits, we often use used to or would.
For example, I used to walk to school every day.
Or, we would watch television together in the evenings.
These structures are excellent for storytelling and reminiscing.
They're especially useful for IELTS speaking tests and advanced English conversations.
Another important part of talking about habits is asking follow-up questions.
This keeps conversations flowing and shows interest.
You might ask, how long have you had that habit?
Or, has it always been part of your routine?
British conversations value politeness and curiosity, so these questions work very well.
Let's not forget habits at work, which are common in professional English.
You might say, I usually start my day by checking emails.
Or, I tend to take a short break in the afternoon.
The phrase I tend to is very British and very natural.
It sounds softer and less absolute than I always.
Talking about study habits is also important for English learners.
Sentences like I revise in the evenings or I study best in the morning are very useful.
These phrases come up often in education and exam conversations.
Habits can even be used to talk about personality in English.
For example, I have a habit of overthinking.
Or, she has a habit of arriving early.
These expressions help describe people naturally and politely.
Now let's talk about how habits change over time.
You might say, my habits have changed since I started working from home.
Or, I've developed better habits over the years.
Present perfect tense works well here because it connects past habits to the present.
This is especially useful for intermediate and advanced English learners.
Let's also talk about cultural habits, which are fascinating conversation topics.
You might say, in the UK, people have a habit of talking about the weather.
That's very true and very British.
Talking about cultural habits helps build cross-cultural understanding.
It's also great for travel English and international communication.
Another useful phrase is, it's a habit of mine, which sounds natural and confident.
For example, it's a habit of mine to read before bed.
This phrase is perfect for casual and semi-formal conversations.
Let's talk about breaking habits, which is something everyone relates to.
You might say, I'm trying to break the habit of checking my phone too often.
This sentence sounds natural and modern.
Technology habits are a very common topic in modern English conversations.
British English often uses understatement when talking about habits.
Instead of dramatic language, we keep it calm and balanced.
That makes conversations feel relaxed and polite.
Let's move on to useful conversation starters about habits.
Do you have any morning routines?
What habits help you stay productive?
Is there a habit you'd like to change?
These questions are excellent for English conversation practice.
They're also perfect for speaking clubs and language exchanges.
Let's talk about habits related to health and well-being.
You might say, I try to eat healthily during the week.
Or, I've gotten into the habit of going for walks.
These phrases sound positive and encouraging.
British English often avoids extremes, which is reflected in habit-related language.
Instead of saying, I never eat sugar, we might say, I try not to eat too much sugar.
That sounds more realistic and conversational.
Another common structure is I'm in the habit of, which sounds quite formal but still natural.
For example, I'm in the habit of planning my week on Sundays.
This phrase works well in professional and academic English.
Habits also come up in family conversations.
You might say, "We have a habit of eating dinner together."
That sounds warm and very natural.
Let's talk about how habits affect daily life.
You could say, my habits help me stay organized.
Or, some habits are hard to change.
Simple sentences like these are powerful and effective.
One of the best ways to practice talking about habits is to talk about your own life.
This makes your English more personal and memorable.
Try keeping a habit journal in English.
Write sentences about what you usually do each day.
This is excellent writing and speaking practice.
Listening to podcasts like TALKS ZARA also helps you absorb natural English.
Over time, these phrases will become habits themselves.
Language learning is all about building good habits.
Consistency is more important than perfection.
Speaking a little every day is better than studying once a week.
Before we wrap up, let's quickly review key phrases for talking about habits in English.
I usually, I tend to, I'm trying to, and I've gotten into the habit of.
These phrases will instantly make your English sound more natural.
They're widely used in British English conversations.
Remember, talking about habits is not just grammar practice.
It's about sharing your life, routines, and experiences.
That's what real communication is all about.
Yes, because when you listen to native speakers, you'll notice that habits are rarely discussed in isolation.
They're often linked to emotions, preferences, lifestyle choices, and even goals.
For example, someone might say, I've gotten to the habit of waking up early and it really improves my mood.
That sentence combines habits, feelings, and results, which makes the conversation richer.
This is a great tip for English learners who want to move beyond short answers.
Instead of just saying, "I wake up early," you can add a reason or outcome.
British English conversations often value that extra detail, but in a calm, understated way.
Another thing learners should know is that habits are often introduced casually.
Native speakers don't always announce them directly. You might hear something like, I tend to pop out for a walk after dinner.
Pop out is a very British phrasal verb, meaning to go somewhere briefly.
Adding phrasal verbs to habit-related sentences makes your English sound far more natural. For example, I usually pop into the shop on my way home.
Or, I tend to wind down by reading in the evening.
Wind down is another excellent phrase when talking about relaxing habits.
Let's talk about habits and social life, which is a popular English conversation topic.
You might say, we've gotten to the habit of meeting up on Fridays.
That's a common way British people talk about friendships.
It sounds friendly, informal, and warm.
Another useful phrase is, "It's become a bit of a habit."
This phrase is often used when a habit develops naturally over time.
For instance, checking my phone first thing in the morning has become a bit of a habit.
That sounds very modern and relatable.
Talking about habits can also be a gentle way to give advice in English.
For example, you might find it helpful to get into the habit of planning ahead.
This sounds polite and supportive, not bossy.
British English is full of indirect advice like this.
Another example could be, "It might be worth making it a habit."
This phrase is commonly used in workplaces and professional settings.
Let's also mention habits related to time management.
You might say, I have a habit of leaving things until the last minute.
This is a very honest and human sentence.
Native speakers often admit habits like this with a light tone.
Humor is often used when talking about bad habits in the UK.
For example, I've got a bad habit of hitting the snooze button.
That's a phrase many people will instantly understand.
Hitting the snooze button is a great idiomatic expression.
Idioms related to habits are excellent for advanced English learners.
Another one is old habits die hard.
This means habits are difficult to change.
It's a very common British expression.
You might hear it used in sentences like, "I still drink tea in the afternoon. Old habits die hard."
That sounds very natural and conversational.
Let's talk about habits in childhood, which often comes up in storytelling.
You might say, As a child, I had a habit of staying up late.
Or, growing up, we were in the habit of eating together.
These sentences are perfect for narrative English.
They're also useful for exams like IELTS Speaking Part 2.
Habits also appear when talking about future intentions.
You might say, I'm hoping to develop better habits next year.
This sounds realistic and positive.
British English often avoids absolute promises.
Instead of saying I will, we say I'm hoping to or I'm planning to.
Let's talk about habits in informal spoken English.
You might hear someone say, I've gotten to a bit of a routine.
This phrase is very common and very British.
It simply means you're doing the same things regularly.
Another informal phrase is, it's just something I do.
For example, I stretch in the morning. It's just something I do.
This phrase sounds effortless and natural.
Habits can also be described using sort of or kind of.
For instance, I kind of have a habit of overworking.
These softening phrases are extremely common in British speech.
They make statements sound less direct and more conversational.
Let's also talk about habits in group conversations.
You might say, we usually take turns cooking.
Or, as a family, we have a habit of eating late.
Group habits are often described using we tend to or we usually.
These structures are very useful for everyday English.
Habits can even come up when talking about opinions.
For example, I have a habit of looking at both sides.
This sounds thoughtful and balanced.
British English values moderation, and habit language reflects that.
Another phrase learners should know is make a habit of.
For example, I try to make a habit of being on time.
This phrase suggests intention and responsibility.
It's excellent for professional and formal English.
Let's talk about habits and motivation.
You might say, good habits help me stay motivated.
Or, once a habit forms, it becomes easier.
These sentences are often used in self-improvement discussions.
Talking about habits is also common in health conversations.
Doctors often recommend developing healthy habits.
That sentence sounds formal and informative.
Now let's touch on habits in British culture again.
Tea drinking habits are often mentioned.
I've gotten into the habit of having tea in the afternoon.
This sentence feels very British.
Another cultural habit is queuing.
We have a habit of forming queues.
That's a gentle cultural observation often made with humor.
Humor and habits often go hand in hand in British English.
Self-deprecation is very common.
For example, I've got a habit of apologizing too much.
That's a classic British joke.
Finally, let's encourage our listeners to practice.
Try describing your habits out loud in English.
Talk about your morning routine, your work habits, and your weekend habits.
Don't worry about being perfect.
Fluency comes from repetition, just like habits themselves.
Over time, speaking English will feel natural.
And listening to English regularly will become a habit too.
Thank you once again for spending time with us on TALKS ZARA.
We hope this extended episode gives you even more confidence.
Keep listening, keep practicing, and keep building strong English habits.
Until next time, this has been TALKS ZARA.